Okay, on rooftop installations, some of the problems you're going to have is that, first of all, security. When you have a lot of people working on a roof, it's really problematic and you can have problems. If it's a 50 kilowatt installation, there are only 4 people, but if you have to build a 2 megawatt installation, maybe you can have 40 people working at the same time on top of a roof. So it's really important that you watch out with the security and the risk prevention. Also, you have to take care of the great powers in wiring. When you have a 50 kilowatt installations, the wire is not really thick, it's small. But when you're talking about big installations, you have lots of wires all around, and you have to make sure, well, it's really heavy and they are really big, and you have to think ahead of how you're going to conduct the wire and where you're going to put it. Also, another problem is the weight calculation of the structure. Okay, in a roof installation, you have to calculate, you have to see the structure, how much weight it can stand, and so you know if you can put the installation on the roof or not. Sometimes maybe you have to lose production because if the structure is not strong enough, it would be good not to put any structure and to stick the modules to the roof, so you lose a little bit of production, but you can put the modules. So it's worth, okay, maybe I produce 3% less, but I can put all the modules. If not, the structure wouldn't hold it. You must also be aware that you should leave space on the roof for the O&M. The one problem that you see sometimes is that the client wants to put as much power as possible. So he wants to fill the roof with modules, but then you have to realize that after that you will have to go there, and when you have a problem in a module, you will have to fix it. So you have to be aware of that. Also, you have to have a good calculation programs for the shading. Okay, this is really important because shading it gives can make you lose a lot of money, and it's better to put sometimes to put less modules but have them producing at 100% than to try to put lots of modules and having them producing at 90% of their capacity. Also, you have to understand that a module is like 1.5 square meters, but if you put a sheet of paper on a module, maybe it loses 50% of its production. So shading is really important. It's really important. Well, not only that, is that if there is shading, you can get hot spots. Okay, when you have the module, the cells usually produce, but when one cell is not producing, it acts as a resistance. So it gets hot and it can burn and break the module if you have that problem for a long time. Okay, you must also be aware of the connection in which, in the direction in which you connect the strings. Okay, if you know that you're going to have shading in one part, what you do is in that part you connect all the modules that are going to be in the shade. You connect them in the same string. So when the shade is there, let's imagine that, for example, first hour in the morning there's going to be shade in some part of the installation. So you connect all that modules in the same string. So when the shade comes in, at first time in the morning, that string doesn't produce, but all the other strings, they produce properly. Because if you connect all the strings in the other sense, and you have a little bit of shade in every string, what you have is that none of the strings is producing. So it's important that you calculate really well where you are going to have the shades, because you will always have shades, that's for sure. You calculate and you make sure that all the shaded parts are in the same string. Other thing you must take into account when you are on roofs is that the inverter has MPPT, maximum power point tracking. That means the inverter is always searching for the the tension and the intensity of the production of what he receives. So it's working and looking for the maximum power. Taking into account that he produces also always the maximum power. When you're on a rooftop and you have one roof, some of them is like you have 2 parts of the roof. One is to the south and the other one is to the north. If you connect both sides with the same inverter, since they are not in the same sense, the inverter is going to get crazy because it won't be able to find the maximum power point tracking. So it's a good idea, for example, if you have 4 slopes, you connect the 2 northern with the same inverter and the 2 southern with the same inverter. Or, for example, if you have 2 slopes and you have 50 kilowatts in total, you don't use just one inverter of 50. You use 2 inverters of 25, and each slope is with one of the inverters. Okay. Like I said, the other problems you have are managing problems. You have to manage really big teams, and are going to be different areas involved in the installation. You have to take care of financing. Like I said, financing is really important. Logistics, to make sure that you receive everything on time. Purchasing. In this sector where the cost of the materials are 90% of the cost of the installation, making sure that you are purchasing correctly is really important. Also, you have to deal with a lot of people, so human resources and the planification. You have, like I said, it's really, really important that you planificate everything ahead of time, so you know where the bottlenecks are going to be and you are ready for them. Because believe me, you will have problems. It always does. And when you're building 50 kilowatts, if you run out of cable, it's really easy. You tell the guy, go to the shop and buy some more cable. But when you need, I don't know, 4,000 tons of cable, 4,000 kilos of cable, it's not that easy to tell the guy to go and buy it, because the supplier doesn't have it on stock, especially if you need some specifications or whatever. So you must planificate really ahead of time. Other problem that you have is the mid and high tension. When you build small installations, you always connect to the grid, is no problem. But when you're dealing with big installations, you're going to start having problems with high tension. Okay, high tension is the biggest bottleneck you're going to find. Most of the time, it's not really a lot of money, high tension, but you have to calculate really good, because maybe the electrical company tells you that you have to connect in a line that is 2 kilometers from where you are doing the plant, and 2 kilometers is a lot of money. And also you have to find out that when you have to go 3 kilometers, maybe you have to go through a lot of people's plots, so you have to deal with them, or maybe you have to go through a river, or maybe you have to go to a place where it's really complicated to go through, so you have to plan ahead of time for the mid tension or high tension. Also, you have to be aware that sometimes the electrical company is going to tell you that you need to build a small substation or some other device, and those things cost a lot of, a substation is like more than €1 million, and it can take at least 1 year to be built. So if you have to build a substation, you must really plan ahead of time. Okay. Then also, like I said, purchasing department is really important, and your relations with suppliers. You must try to deal with them so you can pay a little bit afterwards, and it's important that you have some suppliers. Like I said, if you have been working with them for years, it's much easier. Okay, so like I said, from the point of view of a client, when you choose an EPC contractor, you must choose somebody that has experience, because experience saves money, okay? If the guy has experience, he's going to avoid all these problems we have been talking about, so he's going to make it cheaper for you, and also he's going to make sure that everything produces properly, and you are going to have bigger income. So an experienced EPC contractor will make sure that you pay less money and you have bigger income. He won't have any duplicity problems, oversizing. He will design it properly and everything. And you have also to make sure, as a client, that your EPC contractor is bankable. Because even though if you don't think that you're going to need a project finance now, you may need it later. And if the guy doesn't have a big balance sheet and doesn't have a lot of experience and is acceptable by the banks, you will never be able to do the project finance. Okay. As an EPC contractor, what you have to think of is that you have to plan everything ahead of time. Believe me, any planning you do is not enough, because you're going to have many problems, and you have to be ready with lots of working capital, like I said, because you really, especially with project finance, you're going to get paid much later than what you think. Okay, you can say, no, but the contract says that when I do this milestone, I get paid. It's not exactly like that. First you finish the milestone, then you tell the client, then the client tells the technical advisor. The technical advisor has to find a time when to go. He goes there, he checks everything, he makes sure you have achieved the milestone. Then he has to write a report send the report to the client sends it to the bank, and then a week after you get paid. So all this time is it's a lot of time at the end. So be aware of the working capital you're going to need, and watch out with the high tension. So those would be my 3 main tips. And then, like I said, my other advice is that during the negotiations, don't let the lawyers lead them. I mean, lead them yourselves, and then call the lawyers afterwards when you have agreed with most of the things with the client. Okay, and like I said, when planning, remember that everything you think that may not happen will happen. Okay, well, these are some of our projects, so you can take a look. That's it.